So I've just finished creating my sketch on tracing paper and making sure that I've labeled the front. I'm getting ready to transfer this to drawing paper so that my image will be really bright and clear, and then I'll be going over top of my lines with a Sharpie so that I can see them easily. Now that I've got my transfer paper here ready, I'm going to flip it over. This is the back. All right, make sure that you know the difference between the front of your paper and the back. To be able to transfer this, something that I'm going to have to do is I'm going to make sure that my image and there's no other paper underneath of it. I'm going to be shading on the back. Again, the front is where you sketched your image. Make sure that you label it. The back is where we're going to build up some graphite so that we can transfer it to paper. So what I'm going to do, I can see my sketch underneath. I'm going to take my pencil and then over top of my lines, I'm going to build up graphite. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm just shading over top of the lines. This is going to allow me to transfer my image to a piece of drawing paper. So I'm just going over top of my lines, building up graphite. This works really well with a regular number 2 pencil. Sometimes it's a little bit harder with a mechanical pencil just because the lead's really thin. This is a little bit more bold and easier to use. So it's going to continue around, building up that graphite everywhere where I have a line that I know I want to show up. You want to make sure that you do this on the back, because if you did this on the front and tried to transfer it, your image would be backwards when you go to actually put it on your project. And I don't. It's made specifically to fit in here. So I've shaded on the back of my project. The front is where I sketched. That's my original image. So I'm going to take a piece of drawing paper from the counter. There's a bin that's going to say Marty Cooper drawing paper. I'm going to place it over top. I want to make sure that this says front and that my character is the way that it looks when I drew it, and that it's going to go into my paper in the correct shape and form. I'm going to take my pencil now, holding this in place, not moving it around, and I'm going to go over top of my lines. Because you have built up graphite behind, underneath of them, it's going to push that onto the paper, and therefore I'm making an exact copy of my sketch and drawing. That way I don't have to redraw this after I sketch it. I'm just taking what's there and using it. Make sure that you go over top of all of your lines, because if you miss something, sometimes it's really hard to go back and put those lines and line everything up exactly where you had it the first time. Okay, if I want to make sure that I've got all my lines, I can do this like as a hinge, hold it up. If I miss something, then I can go back in there like, whoa, I missed this line. I need to make sure that that's there. All right, so now I've got my copy. So I've got this transfer. I can just set that to the side. And this is my actual drawing that will go on my project. So this is where we're going to talk about different types of line. And different thicknesses. Again, you know, you've got your bold Sharpie and you've got your thin Sharpie. And we can also do things that make this feel like it has some form and some shape. So on my other example, I did some kind of scratchy line making to show some movement. So movement lines are really great for this, especially since it's based on an animation. And then I'm going to take my Sharpie and go over top of my lines. Again, think about a variety of lines. Some of these can be bolder and thicker. I can add lines to show texture or movement. If it's an animal, you absolutely can use some texture to show fur or scales. Anything that works well with that character. Different ways that we can use lines so that it's not purely an outline. I'm going to work into it so that it has a little bit more detail.